The summer night hung heavy with humidity as I embarked on yet another late delivery shift at Papa Pizza. Armed with little more than a stack of outdated maps and a sense of duty, I set out to navigate the winding roads of Maple Street, a rural stretch known for its labyrinthine twists and turns. The old pickup truck rattled as I drove, its headlights cutting through the darkness like feeble torches in the night. The glow of the dashboard clock reminded me that time was slipping away, each passing minute bringing me closer to the unknown destination that awaited. Maple Street, Maple Street, I muttered to myself, my voice swallowed by the silence of the night. The names of the roads blurred together in my mind, a jumble of letters and numbers that offered little solace in the face of the daunting task ahead. As I turned onto Maple Street, the world seemed to shrink around me, the trees closing in like gnarled fingers reaching for the sky. Shadows danced along the edges of my vision, twisting and writhing in the darkness. Just a little farther, reassured myself, though the words rang hollow in the stillness of the night. The weight of uncertainty settled over me like a heavy cloak, each passing mile stretching out before me like an endless expanse of unknown territory. Suddenly, the glow of a street lamp illuminated a weathered sign, its faded letters spelling out the name of the street I sought. Maple Street. Relief flooded through me like a wave crashing against the shore, though it was short-lived. Ahead, nestled among the trees like a forgotten relic of a bygone era, stood the house I had been searching for. Its windows were dark, its silhouette looming against the backdrop of the night. I parked the truck and stepped out into the stillness, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. With each step, the ground seemed to swallow me whole, the darkness enveloping me like a suffocating blanket. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the silence. There was no response, only the sound of my own footsteps as I approached the door. "Delivery?" I called again, my words hanging in the air like a question without an answer. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior shrouded in shadows. "Who's there?" Voice called out from the darkness, sending a shiver down my spine. I stepped forward, into the unknown, my heart pounding in my chest. "I'm here from Papa Pizza," I replied, my voice trembling with uncertainty. "I have a delivery." The figure in the doorway remained silent, its features obscured by the darkness. For a moment, we stood locked in a silent standoff, the weight of the night pressing down upon us like a suffocating weight. Finally, the figure stepped aside, allowing me entry into the dimly lit interior of the house. As I crossed the threshold, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped into a world far removed from reality. A world where shadows lurked around every corner, and the darkness held secrets better left buried. The house on Maple Street loomed before me, a silent sentinel in the darkness, its weathered facade betraying the passage of time. As I approached, chill wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of decay and neglect. I hesitated at the foot of the front steps, the weight of uncertainty pressing down upon me like a leaden cloak. The door stood slightly ajar, a silent invitation into the heart of the unknown. Summoning all my courage, I stepped forward, the creak of the porch boards echoing in the stillness. With each footfall, the air grew heavier, suffused with a palpable sense of dread that seemed to seep from the very walls of the house. "Hello?" I called out, my voice faltering in the oppressive silence. There was no response, only the hollow echo of my own words bouncing off the walls. As I crossed the threshold, the darkness enveloped me like a shroud, swallowing me whole. The interior of the house was bathed in shadow, its corners obscured by the gloom. "Delivery?" I called out again, my voice tinged with uncertainty. "Is anyone home?" For a moment, there was nothing but silence, the stillness of the house pressing down upon me like a weight. Then, from the depths of the darkness, a voice spoke, its words barely more than a whisper. "Welcome," it murmured, the sound sending shivers down my spine. "Please, come in." The voice seemed to emanate from everywhere, and nowhere its source impossible to pinpoint. With each step, the floorboards groaned beneath my feet, protesting my intrusion into the sanctum of the house. As I ventured deeper into the shadows, the air grew thick with the scent of decay and neglect. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, their secrets hidden behind layers of peeling paint and cracked plaster. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice echoing in the darkness. "Why have you summoned me here?" But there was no response, only the sound of my own footsteps as I navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the house. With each passing moment, the darkness seemed to close in around me, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare me in its grasp. Finally, I reached the heart of the house, a dimly lit chamber bathed in an eerie glow. At its center stood a figure cloaked in shadow, its features obscured by the darkness. "Who are you?" demanded, my voice trembling with fear. "What do you want from me?" But the figure remained silent, its gaze fixed upon me with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. In that moment, I knew that I was not alone, that something sinister lurked in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself. And as the darkness closed in around me, I realized that the house on Maple Street held secrets far darker than I could have ever imagined. The night settled like a heavy cloak over Michael James's delivery cyclist as he pedaled through the dimly lit streets. Each turn of the wheel brought him closer to his destination. Yet the darkness seemed to stretch on endlessly, swallowing him whole. As he approached the address on his delivery list, a sense of unease gnawed at his insides, like a whisper of warning in the stillness of the night. The house loomed before him, its windows dark and forbidding, a silent sentinel in the darkness. "Strange," he muttered to himself, his breath misting in the chill night air. "No lights on a night like this." With a growing sense of trepidation, he dismounted his bicycle and approached the front door, his knuckles rapped against the wood, the sound echoing in the silence like a drumbeat in the night. No answer came, only the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. He hesitated, a chill wind sending shivers down his spine as he glanced around, searching for any sign of life. "Hello," he called out, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I have a delivery from Michael James's. Is anyone home?" For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of his own breathing, the air heavy with the weight of the night. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, its form obscured by the darkness. "Who's there?" The voice called out, its tone laced with suspicion. "What do you want?" The delivery cyclist's heart raced in his chest as he faced the figure, his senses on high alert. There was something about the way it moved, something unnatural that sent a shiver down his spine. "I had a delivery," he replied, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Are you expecting something from Michael James's?" The figure hesitated, its gaze fixed upon him with an intensity that made his blood run cold. Then, slowly, it stepped forward into the dim light, revealing itself to be a man of indeterminate age, his features etched with wariness and mistrust. "I didn't order anything," the man said, his voice low and gravelly, "but I suppose I could take it off your hands." The delivery cyclist's pulse quickened as he handed over the package, his fingers trembling with the weight of the unknown. As the man accepted it with a nod of thanks, a chill wind swept through the air, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that lingered long after he had gone. And as he pedaled away into the night, the watchful eyes of the house on Maple Street followed him, their gaze burning like beacons in the darkness, a silent reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. As the night deepened, the air grew thick with an oppressive silence that seemed to suffocate the senses. The delivery worker, navigating the desolate streets of Maple Street, felt the weight of the darkness pressing down upon him like a heavy blanket. With each step closer to the mysterious house, an unsettling feeling settled in his gut, a primal instinct warning him of unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the pavement like spectral fingers. Approaching the doorstep of the house, he could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end, a tingling sensation creeping up his spine. The air seemed charged with an otherworldly energy, and he could sense a presence watching him from the depths of the darkness. "Delivery," he called out, his voice echoing in the stillness of the night. "Is anyone home?" For a moment, there was only silence, the sound of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. Then, from somewhere within the house, he heard the faintest rustle of movement, like the whisper of a ghost passing through the night. He tensed, every nerve in his body on high alert as he waited for a response. The darkness seemed to pulse around him, alive with the promise of unseen terrors lurking just beyond the edge of his vision. Suddenly, a voice pierced the silence, its tone soft and low, sending a chill down his spine. "Welcome," it murmured, the words hanging in the air like a sinister promise. "Come inside." The delivery worker's heart hammered in his chest as he stared into the depths of the darkness, his instincts screaming at him to flee. But something compelled him forward, a curiosity born of fear and uncertainty. With trembling hands, he reached for the door handle, the metal cold beneath his touch. As the door swung open, he was met with a wave of stale air that seemed to choke the very life from his lungs. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice wavering with uncertainty. "What do you want from me?" But there was no answer, only the sound of his own ragged breaths echoing in the empty space. As he stepped over the threshold, the darkness closed in around him like a suffocating embrace, swallowing him whole. And as he disappeared into the depths of the house, the lurking presence that had haunted his nightmares stirred, its hunger awakened by the scent of fear that hung heavy in the air. In the heart of Wilmington, North Carolina, the night descended like a shroud, enveloping the streets in an eerie stillness. An Uber Eats driver, navigating the labyrinthine roads, found himself drawn into a web of terror that would forever haunt his dreams. As he approached the address on his delivery list, a sense of unease settled over him like a heavy cloak. The house loomed before him, its windows dark and foreboding, a silent sentinel in the night. With each step closer to the doorstep, the driver's pulse quickened, primal instinct warning him of the danger that lurked in the shadows. The air seemed charged with an otherworldly energy, the silence pregnant with the promise of unspeakable horrors. Summoning all his courage, he rang the doorbell, the sound echoing in the stillness like a bell tolling the arrival of doom. For a moment, there was only silence, the weight of the night pressing down upon him like a leaden weight. Then, from within the depths of the house, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching, slow and deliberate. His heart raced in his chest as the door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. "What do you want?" the figure demanded, its voice low and menacing. "I didn't order anything." The driver's breath caught in his throat as he faced the figure, his instincts screaming at him to flee. But something held him in place, a morbid curiosity born of fear and uncertainty. "I have a delivery," he stammered, his voice barely more than a whisper. "From Uber Eats." The figure's eyes narrowed, its gaze boring into him with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. For a moment, they stood locked in a silent standoff, the darkness pressing in around them like a living thing. Then, without a word, the figure stepped aside, allowing the driver entry into the dimly lit interior of the house. As he crossed the threshold, a sense of dread settled over him like a suffocating blanket, the air thick with the stench of decay and neglect. "Leave it on the table," the figure commanded, its voice echoing in the emptiness. "And leave." The driver's hands trembled as he placed the package on the table, his mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. But before he could speak, the figure vanished into the shadows, leaving him alone in the darkness. As he hurried back to his car, a sense of relief washed over him, the weight of the night lifting from his shoulders like a burden lifted. Little did he know, the true horror was yet to come, lurking in the depths of the night like a predator waiting to strike. And as he drove away into the darkness, the night whispered its secrets, a harbinger of the terror that awaited him in the depths of the unknown. The night wore on, casting its shadowy veil over the streets of Wilmington, North Carolina, as the Uber Eats driver navigated his way through the labyrinthine roads. Little did he know, the darkness held far more sinister secrets than he could have ever imagined. Arriving at the designated address, a sense of unease settled over him like a heavy fog. The house loomed before him, its windows shrouded in darkness. A silent sentinel in the night. With cautious steps, he approached the front door, his heart pounding in his chest with each footfall. As he reached out to ring the doorbell, a sudden chill swept through the air, sending shivers down his spine. But before he could make his delivery, a glint of metal caught his eye. A chilling sight that froze him in his tracks. Both tires on the left side of his car had been slashed, their rubber deflated and lifeless. Shock and fear coursed through him, mingling with the adrenaline that surged through his veins. Panic threatened to consume him as he scanned the empty street for any sign of the culprit. But the night offered no solace, only the oppressive weight of silence. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone, fingers fumbling as he dialed for help. With each passing moment, the darkness seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with its malevolent embrace. As he waited for assistance, a voice shattered the silence. A low, menacing whisper that sent a chill down his spine. "You're not going anywhere." Startled, he turned to find a figure emerging from the shadows, its features obscured by the darkness. Panic surged through him as he stumbled backward, his mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. "Why?" he demanded, his voice trembling with fear. "What do you want from me?" But the figure remained silent, its gaze fixed upon him with an intensity that made his blood run cold. With each passing moment, the night seemed to close in around him, trapping him in a web of terror from which there was no escape. As the darkness enveloped him, the driver realized with dawning horror that he was not alone, that something far more sinister lurked in the depths of the night, waiting to claim him as its next victim. And as the shadows swallowed him whole, he knew that the true nightmare had only just begun. In the heart of Wilmington, North Carolina, the night cast its somber cloak over the deserted streets, shrouding them in an eerie silence. For the Uber Eats driver, the darkness held far more than just the absence of light. It concealed the lurking shadows of terror that would soon descend upon him. As he grappled with the shock of his slashed tires, a sense of foreboding gripped him like a vice. His heart pounded in his chest as he surveyed the desolate street, searching for any sign of the assailants who had plunged him into this nightmare. Suddenly, from the shadows, figures emerged, masked and menacing, their presence like a specter haunting the night. Panic surged through him as he realized the magnitude of the danger he faced, trapped between the darkness and the unknown. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice quivering with fear. "What do you want from me?" But the figures remained silent, their faces concealed behind masks that bore the semblance of nightmares. With each step they took, the air grew heavy with tension, suffused with the electric crackle of impending violence. Desperation clawed at him as he frantically searched for an escape route, his mind racing with 1,000 unanswered questions. But the night offered no solace, only the cold embrace of terror that threatened to consume him whole. "Please," he pleaded, his voice trembling with desperation. "I don't have anything of value. Just let me go." But his words fell on deaf ears, lost in the swirling darkness that surrounded him. With each passing moment, the figures drew closer, their intentions shrouded in mystery and menace. As they closed in on him, primal instinct took hold, driving him to fight for survival against the encroaching darkness. Adrenaline surged through him as he braced himself for the inevitable confrontation, steeling his resolve against the unknown horrors that lurked in the night. And as the masked assailants descended upon him, the Uber Eats driver found himself plunged into a maelstrom of chaos and terror, his fate hanging in the balance between the abyss and the unknown. In that moment, He knew that the true nightmare had only just begun. In the aftermath of the harrowing encounter with the masked assailants, the Uber Eats driver found himself grappling with the remnants of terror that still lingered in the air. The streets of Wilmington, North Carolina, lay cloaked in darkness, bearing witness to the horrors that had unfolded under the veil of night. As he struggled to make sense of the chaos that had engulfed him, a glimmer of light pierced the darkness, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. With trembling hands, he reached for his phone, his fingers tracing the familiar contours of the device as he dialed for help. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder with each passing moment. A lifeline in the abyss that threatened to consume him whole. With renewed determination, he clung to the promise of salvation, his resolve bolstered by the knowledge that help was on the way. As the flashing lights of emergency vehicles illuminated the night, a sense of relief washed over him, driving back the shadows that had threatened to engulf him. For the first time since the ordeal began, he allowed himself to breathe, the weight of fear lifting from his shoulders like a burden lifted. "Are you okay?" a voice asked, breaking through the silence like a beacon of reassurance. He turned to find a paramedic standing before him, their face etched with concern and compassion. Relief flooded through him as he met their gaze, a sense of gratitude welling up within him for the first responders who had come to his aid. "I'm shaken, but I'll be okay," he replied, his voice wavering with emotion. "Thank you for coming." The paramedic offered him a reassuring smile, a beacon of light in the darkness that had threatened to consume him. With gentle hands, they tended to his wounds, their touch a balm against the scars that marred his soul. As the chaos of the night began to recede, a sense of clarity descended upon him, a revelation born of the darkness that had engulfed him. In the face of adversity, he had found strength. In the depths of despair, he had discovered resilience. And as he watched the first light of dawn break over the horizon, he knew that he would emerge from the darkness stronger than before, a survivor forged in the crucible of adversity, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the first light of dawn cast its golden glow over the streets of Wilmington, North Carolina, the Uber Eats driver stood at the threshold of a new day, his spirit tempered by the trials of the night. The echoes of chaos still lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had threatened to consume him. With each step forward, he ventured into the unknown, his path illuminated by the flickering light of hope that danced on the horizon. The streets, once shrouded in darkness, now beckoned to him with the promise of a new beginning, the chance to reclaim what had been lost in the shadows. As he made his way through the quiet streets, a sense of determination burned within him, a fire that had been ignited by the trials of the night. With each passing moment, he felt the weight of fear and uncertainty lift from his shoulders, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. "Are you sure you're okay to go back to work?" a concerned voice asked, breaking through the silence of his thoughts. He turned to find a fellow driver standing beside him, their eyes filled with empathy and understanding. In their gaze, he saw a reflection of his own resilience, a shared bond forged in the crucible of adversity. "I'll be fine," he replied, his voice steady with conviction. "I can't let fear hold me back." His companion nodded in understanding, a silent acknowledgement of the strength that lay within them both. Together, they stood as beacons of hope in a world darkened by uncertainty, their resolve unshakable in the face of adversity. With a final nod of encouragement, the Uber Eats driver set forth on his journey, his footsteps echoing in the quiet streets as he embraced the unknown that lay before him. In his heart, he carried the lessons of the night, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable challenges. And as he disappeared into the light of a new day, he knew that whatever trials awaited him, he would face them head-on, armed with the courage of a survivor and the unwavering resolve of a soul forged in the fires of adversity. For in the heart of darkness, he had discovered the true measure of his strength, a beacon of hope shining brightly against the backdrop of an uncertain world. And with each step forward, he ventured into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever destiny lay in store. The tires crunched gravel as I steered our beat-up sedan down the narrow road leading to our new home. Emma, my daughter, peered out the window with a mix of excitement and apprehension, her fingers drumming against the glass in rhythm with the passing trees. "Dad, is this where we're going to live now?" Emma's voice trembled with uncertainty, her gaze flitting between the unfamiliar houses, dotting the roadside. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied, my voice tinged with forced reassurance. "This is our new home." The weight of our troubled past hung heavy in the air, a silent specter looming over our fragile hopes for a fresh start. We had left behind the wreckage of broken dreams, seeking refuge in the embrace of this quaint little town nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering pines. As we rounded the final bend, our new home came into view. A modest house with faded paint and a welcoming porch adorned with colorful blooms. It wasn't much, but it was a sanctuary from the storm raging within our hearts. Emma's eyes widened with wonder as she took in the sight, her lips curving into a tentative smile. "It's beautiful, Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the engine. I reached out, ruffling her chestnut curls with affection. "Yes, it is," I murmured, my throat tight with unspoken promises and fragile hopes. Together, we stepped into the unknown, leaving behind the shattered fragments of our past and embracing the promise of a new beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the tranquil landscape, I knew that our journey was just beginning. And with Emma by my side, I dared to believe that anything was possible. In the hushed tranquility of our new home, whispers of unease began to stir like restless spirits in the night. Emma's voice, once filled with the innocent laughter of childhood, now carried a tremor of uncertainty as she spoke of the shadows lurking at the edge of her dreams. "Dad, I saw him again." Emma's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Saw who, sweetheart?" asked, my heart clenching with a primal instinct to protect her from whatever demons haunted her fragile sleep. "The backwards man," she whispered, her voice barely a breath against the silence of the night. "He was standing by the woods, watching me." Shivers snaked down my spine at her words, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling with a sense of foreboding. "It's just your imagination, Emma," I replied, forcing a smile that felt as brittle as glass. "There's nothing to be afraid of." But even as the words left my lips, doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve, whispering of hidden truths and forgotten horrors lurking in the shadows of our newfound sanctuary. Days melted into nights, each passing moment steeped in a palpable sense of unease. Emma's sleep grew restless, haunted by visions of the backwards man and the twisted dance of shadows that prowled the periphery of her dreams. One evening, as dusk descended like a velvet cloak upon the world, Emma's voice pierced the stillness of the night with a trembling urgency. "Dad, he's here," she cried, her words laced with terror as she clutched my hand with a desperation born of primal fear. I followed her gaze, my heart pounding against the confines of my chest as I scanned the darkness beyond the safety of our walls. But there was nothing, only the shifting tapestry of moonlight and shadows dancing in the gentle breeze. "He's gone now, Emma," I whispered, pulling her close in a futile attempt to shield her from the horrors that lurked just beyond our reach. "It was just a bad dream." But even as I spoke the words, a seed of doubt took root in the depths of my soul, whispering of truths too terrible to comprehend and shadows too deep to banish with the light of day. And as the night stretched on with its silent symphony of whispers and echoes, I knew that our troubles had only just begun. The moon hung low in the sky, casting its silvery glow upon the sleeping town as Emma tossed and turned in the grip of restless slumber. Night after night, her dreams were haunted by the spectral presence of the backwards man, a sinister figure woven from the fabric of her deepest fears. Dad, he's back. Emma's voice trembled with a mixture of dread and resignation as she emerged from the depths of her troubled sleep. I rushed to her side, my heart constricted with a sense of helplessness as I gazed into her tear-streaked eyes. "It's okay, sweetheart," I murmured, my voice strained with the weight of unspoken fears. "I'm here." But even as I spoke the words, I knew that my presence offered little solace against the relentless tide of nightmares that threatened to engulf her fragile sanity. Night after night, Emma's sleep grew fitful, her restless murmurs punctuating the stillness of the night like whispered pleas for salvation. She spoke of the backwards man, his twisted form looming large in the shadowed recesses of her dreams, his eyes burning with an otherworldly intensity that seared her very soul. "It's like he's following me, Dad." Emma's voice wavered with a mixture of awe and terror as she recounted her nightly torment. "No matter where I go, he's always there, watching." I listened in silence, my heart heavy with the burden of her suffering. How could I protect her from a threat that lurked within the depths of her own mind, a specter born from the darkest corners of her imagination? Together, we ventured into the labyrinth of her dreams, searching for answers amidst the twisted landscape of nightmares and forgotten memories. But the backwards man eluded us at every turn, his presence a chilling reminder of the fragility of our sanctuary. As dawn broke upon the horizon, casting its golden light upon the stillness of the night, I knew that our struggle was far from over. The nightmares continued to haunt us, their whispered echoes a relentless reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edges of our fragile reality. And as Emma's cries echoed through the empty halls of our troubled sanctuary, I vowed to confront the shadows that threatened to consume us whole. The morning dew glistened like diamonds upon the emerald carpet of grass as I stepped onto the porch, the crisp air tinged with the promise of a new day. But beneath the facade of serenity, an ominous presence lingered, the echoes of Emma's nightmares still reverberating through the quietude of our troubled sanctuary. My eyes fell upon the faint imprints etched into the soft earth beneath Emma's window, delicate swirls of footprints and handprints, like ghostly echoes of a presence long since vanished. Panic surged within me as I traced the eerie patterns, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling with a sense of impending dread. "Dad, what's wrong?" Emma's voice cut through the silence like a beacon in the night, her brow furrowed with concern as she emerged from the depths of the house. I forced a smile, my throat constricted with unspoken fears. "It's nothing, sweetheart," I replied, my voice strained with the weight of unspoken truths. "Just an animal, probably." But even as the words left my lips, I knew that the truth was far more sinister than I dared to admit. The handprints, too deliberate, too human, spoke of a presence that defied rational explanation, a specter lurking in the shadows of our fragile sanctuary. Together, we ventured into the tangled labyrinth of the woods, our footsteps muffled by the soft carpet of fallen leaves. With each passing moment, the sense of unease grew, the whispering pines bearing witness to the silent dance of shadows that prowled just beyond the edge of perception. "It's him, Dad." Emma's voice trembled with a mixture of fear and resignation as she clutched my hand with a desperation born of primal instinct. "The backwards man." I swallowed the lump rising in my throat, the weight of her words pressing down upon me like a suffocating blanket. How could I protect her from a threat that defied the boundaries of reason, a specter born from the darkest recesses of her troubled mind? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden light upon the desolate landscape, I knew that our troubles were far from over. The backwards man lurked in the shadows, his presence a chilling reminder of the fragility of our sanctuary. And as Emma's cries echoed through the empty halls of our troubled home, I vowed to confront the darkness that threatened to consume us whole. The weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air as I sought solace in the company of Jack, a weathered colleague whose eyes bore witness to the hidden truths lurking beneath the facade of our tranquil town. Over steaming cups of coffee, I recounted Emma's encounters with the backwards man, the weight of unspoken fears pressing down upon me like a suffocating shroud. Jack's brow furrowed with concern as he listened to my tale, his weathered features contorted with a mixture of disbelief and resignation. "I've heard whispers of the backwards men," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper against the backdrop of the bustling cafe. "They're ancient spirits, harbingers of misfortune that have haunted this town for generations." My heart clenched with a sense of foreboding as Jack spoke, the echoes of forgotten legends stirring within the depths of my troubled mind. How could I protect Emma from a threat steeped in the mists of time, a specter born from the darkest corners of human imagination? "We need to find a way to banish him," I replied, my voice tinged with a desperation born of primal instinct. "Before it's too late." Jack's eyes bore into mine, a silent testament to the gravity of our plight. "There are whispers of a ritual," he murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. "But it's dangerous, and there are no guarantees of success." But even as he spoke the words, a spark of hope ignited within the depths of my troubled soul. For Emma's sake, I would brave the depths of darkness and confront the shadows that threatened to consume us whole. Together, we ventured into the heart of the town, our footsteps echoing through the empty streets like a silent prayer for salvation. With each passing moment, the sense of unease grew, the whispers of the past bearing witness to the silent dance of shadows that prowled just beyond the edge of perception. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden light upon the desolate landscape, I knew that our journey was far from over. The backwards man lurked in the shadows, his presence a chilling reminder of the fragility of our sanctuary. And as Emma's cries echoed through the empty halls of our troubled home, I vowed to confront the darkness that threatened to consume us whole. The town seemed to hold its breath, caught in the grip of a pervasive unease that hung heavy in the air like a suffocating shroud. Whispers of fear echoed through the streets, the once familiar faces of neighbors now cast in the pallor of uncertainty. Emma clung to my side, her eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and dread as we navigated the labyrinthine alleys of our troubled sanctuary. With each passing moment, the shadows seemed to deepen, the whispers of the past bearing witness to the silent dance of fear that prowled just beyond the edge of perception. "Dad, do you think we'll be okay?" Emma's voice trembled with uncertainty, her fingers trembling against mine like delicate petals caught in the wind. I forced a smile, the weight of unspoken fears pressing down upon me like a suffocating blanket. "We'll be fine, sweetheart," I replied, my voice strained with the weight of unspoken truths. "We just need to stay together." But even as the words left my lips, doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve, whispering of hidden dangers lurking in the shadows of our fragile sanctuary. How could I protect Emma from a threat that defied the boundaries of reason? A specter born from the darkest corners of human imagination. Together, we ventured into the heart of the town, our footsteps echoing through the empty streets like a silent prayer for salvation. With each passing moment, the sense of unease grew, the whispers of the past bearing witness to the silent dance of shadows that prowled just beyond the edge of perception. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden light upon the desolate landscape, I knew that our journey was far from over. The backwards man lurked in the shadows, his presence a chilling reminder of the fragility of our sanctuary. And as Emma's cries echoed through the empty halls of our troubled home, I vowed to confront the darkness that threatened to consume us whole. The night draped the town in a cloak of darkness, casting long shadows that danced with sinister intent. Determination burned within me as I prepared to confront the elusive specter haunting our lives. Emma's safety depended on my resolve, and I would not falter in the face of the unknown. "Dad, please be careful." Emma's voice trembled with worry as she clutched my hand, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. I offered her a reassuring smile, though my heart raced with apprehension. "I'll do everything in my power to keep us safe, Emma," I promised, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within. With each step into the heart of the woods, the air grew heavy with anticipation, the silence broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant whisper of the wind. Shadows danced upon the forest floor, their twisted forms a silent testament to the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of perception. And then, amidst the gnarled branches and tangled undergrowth, I saw him, the backwards man, his form a grotesque parody of human flesh, his eyes burning with an otherworldly intensity that seared my very soul. Fear coiled like a serpent in my chest as I faced the specter that haunted our dreams, my pulse quickening with each passing moment. But amidst the darkness, a spark of defiance ignited within me, driving back the shadows with the fierce light of determination. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice ringing out into the night with a quiet intensity. "What do you want from us?" The backwards man's gaze bore into mine, a silent challenge that echoed through the stillness of the night. His voice, a haunting melody of forgotten sorrows, whispered through the darkness, weaving a tapestry of shattered dreams and fleeting hopes. But even as he spoke, I knew that our fate was intertwined with his, bound by threads of fate that stretched across the vast expanse of time. And as the night stretched on with its silent symphony of whispers and echoes, I vowed to confront the shadows that threatened to consume us whole. The woods pulsed with an eerie energy as I stood face to face with the backwards man, his presence casting a chilling pall over the tangled undergrowth. Emma's hand trembled in mine, her wide eyes reflecting the primal fear that gripped us both. "Dad, what is he?" Emma's voice quivered with uncertainty, her fingers digging into my palm as if seeking refuge from the encroaching darkness. "I don't know, sweetheart," I admitted, my voice strained with the weight of unspoken fears. "But we can't let him intimidate us." The backwards man loomed before us, his form a grotesque distortion of human flesh, his eyes burning with an otherworldly intensity that seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. Fear coiled like a serpent in the pit of my stomach as I faced the specter that haunted our dreams, my pulse quickening with each passing moment. "What do you want?" I demanded, my voice ringing out into the night with a quiet intensity. "Why are you tormenting us?" The backwards man's gaze bore into mine, a silent challenge that echoed through the stillness of the forest. His voice, a haunting melody of forgotten sorrows, whispered through the darkness, weaving a tapestry of shattered dreams and fleeting hopes. But even as he spoke, a spark of defiance ignited within me, driving back the shadows with a fierce light of determination. I would not let this creature destroy everything we had fought so hard to build, our sanctuary amidst the chaos of the world. With each passing moment, the dance of shadows intensified, the forest alive with the silent symphony of whispers and echoes. But amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope flickered within me, a beacon of light amidst the encroaching gloom. Together, Emma and I stood against the tide of darkness, our resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. For as long as we had each other, we would not be consumed by the shadows that threatened to engulf us whole. The night wore on, the darkness pressing in around us like a suffocating cloak as I stood before the backwards man, my heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Emma's presence beside me was a steady anchor amidst the swirling tempest of fear and doubt. "Why are you here?" implored, my voice echoing through the stillness of the night, the words a desperate plea for understanding in the face of the unknown. The backwards man regarded me with eyes that held the weight of centuries, his gaze piercing the veil of reality with a silent intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "We seek only to exist," his voice echoed through the darkness, a haunting melody of forgotten sorrows and whispered regrets. "To find our place in a world that has long since forgotten our name." Emma's hand tightened around mine, her silent presence a testament to the bond that united us against the encroaching darkness. But even as we stood on the precipice of uncertainty, a glimmer of hope flickered within me, a beacon of light amidst the encroaching gloom. "What do you want from us?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Why have you targeted my daughter?" The backwards man's gaze softened, his form shimmering like smoke in the moonlight. "We are bound by the threads of fate," he murmured, his words a whispered promise of redemption amidst the chaos of the world. but even shadows yearn for salvation. I felt a surge of determination coursing through my veins, a quiet resolve that banished the darkness with the fierce light of defiance. For as long as we had each other, we would not be consumed by the shadows that threatened to engulf us whole. Together, Emma and I stood against the tide of uncertainty, our bond unbreakable in the face of adversity. And as the night stretched on with its silent symphony of whispers and echoes, I knew that our journey was far from over. But with Emma's hand clasped in mine, we would face whatever fate awaited us, unyielding in our pursuit of redemption. Dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden glow upon the desolate landscape as the night's lingering shadows retreated into the depths of the forest. Emma and I stood on the threshold of a new day, our hearts heavy with the weight of the trials we had endured. The backwards man, his spectral form fading into the ether, seemed to sense the dawning of a new era. His presence, once a harbinger of fear and uncertainty, now bore the weight of forgotten sorrows and whispered regrets. "We forgive you," Emma's voice rang out into the silence, her words a quiet echo of redemption amidst the chaos of the world. "For the pain you have caused, and the darkness you have wrought." I felt a surge of emotion welling within me, profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought us to this moment. For as long as we had each other, we would not be consumed by the shadows that threatened to engulf us whole. The backwards man regarded us with eyes that held the wisdom of ages, his form shimmering like smoke in the morning light. "We are bound by the threads of fate," he murmured, his words a whispered promise of redemption amidst the chaos of the world. "But even shadows yearn for salvation." Together, Emma and I stepped into the light of a new dawn, our hearts intertwined in a bond that transcended the boundaries of time and space. As the town stirred to life around us, I knew that our journey was far from over, but with Emma's hand clasped in mine, we would face whatever fate awaited us, unyielding in our pursuit of redemption. And as the shadows faded into the recesses of memory, I knew that our sanctuary would endure, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos of the world. For as long as we had each other, we would brave the depths of darkness and embrace the promise of a new dawn. The midday sun filtered through the glass facade of Target, casting a warm glow over the bustling parking lot. As I stepped out of my car, the familiar hum of activity surrounded me, a symphony of shopping carts rattling and excited chatter filling the air. With a sense of anticipation, I made my way towards the entrance, eager to immerse myself in the world of discounted prices and bulk buying. "Isn't it crowded today?" I overheard a woman remark to her companion, her voice tinged with a hint of exasperation. Her companion chuckled. "Seems like everyone had the same idea as us. Must be the sale on household essentials." I nodded in agreement, sympathizing with their observation. The allure of savings seemed to draw crowds like moths to a flame, transforming the store into a bustling hive of activity. Inside, the aisles stretched out before me like a labyrinth of possibilities, each one promising treasures waiting to be discovered. I navigated my way through the maze, my cart gliding smoothly over the polished floors as I perused the shelves, my eyes scanning for the best deals. "Hey, isn't that the new detergent you wanted to try?" A voice piped up from behind me. I turned to see a young couple, their arms laden with groceries, gesturing towards a display of laundry detergents. "Yes, it is. Thanks for reminding me," I replied with a grateful smile, reaching out to grab a bottle of the coveted detergent. As I continued my journey through the store, I couldn't help but marvel at the sheer variety of products on offer. From fresh produce to electronics, Target truly had it all, catering to every need and whim of its diverse clientele. "Mommy, can we get some cookies?" A child's voice pleaded nearby, accompanied by the sound of tiny footsteps scampering towards the snack aisle. "Okay, but just one pack, okay," came the indulgent reply from a tired-looking mother, her voice tinged with affection. Chuckling softly to myself, I couldn't help but be charmed by the scene unfolding before me. In the midst of the chaos, there was a sense of camaraderie, a shared experience that bound us all together in our quest for savings and convenience. With my cart now brimming with essentials, I made my way towards the checkout lanes, joining the queue of shoppers patiently waiting their turn. As I stood there, surrounded by fellow Target enthusiasts, I couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging, grateful for the opportunity to be part of this vibrant community of bargain hunters. Little did I know, however, that amidst the hustle and bustle of my beloved Target, a shadow lurked, waiting to disrupt the tranquility of my shopping experience in ways I could never have imagined. As I pulled into the Target parking lot, the gleaming facade of the gas station caught my eye, promising respite for my empty tank and a chance to take advantage of the members-only discounts. However, as I maneuvered my car towards the pumps, it became apparent that today's visit wouldn't be as straightforward as I had hoped. A cacophony of honking horns and frustrated shouts filled the air as a chaotic scene unfolded before me. Cars vied for position at the pumps, their drivers growing increasingly impatient with each passing moment. "Come on, move it!" a voice bellowed from behind me, punctuated by the angry blare of a car horn. I glanced in my rearview mirror to see a man in a business suit, his face contorted with frustration as he gestured towards the long line of vehicles ahead. "We're all just trying to get gas," I muttered to myself, empathizing with the collective impatience that seemed to permeate the air. Finally finding a spot at the end of the queue, I settled in for what promised to be a lengthy wait. As I glanced around, I noticed the Target employees stationed nearby, their attempts to manage the chaos somewhat futile in the face of the growing crowd. "Looks like it's busier than usual today," I remarked to the driver in the car next to me, a middle-aged woman with a resigned expression on her face. She nodded in agreement, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Tell me about it. I've been sitting here for almost 20 minutes already." With a sympathetic smile, turned my attention back to the line of cars stretching out before me, resigning myself to the inevitability of the situation. Time passed slowly as I inched my way towards the pumps, the tension in the air palpable as tempers flared and frustrations mounted. "Hey, watch it," a voice shouted from behind me, followed by the sound of screeching tires. Glancing in my side mirror, I saw a commotion erupting between two drivers, their voices rising in anger as they argued over the coveted spot at the pump. As the confrontation escalated, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease wash over me. What had started as a routine trip to the gas station had quickly devolved into a scene straight out of a reality TV show, with tempers flaring and civility all but forgotten. With a sense of relief, I finally reached the front of the line, my turn at the pump finally within reach. But as I prepared to refuel my car and put the chaos of the gas station confrontation behind me, little did I know that the events unfolding before me were just the beginning of a much larger, more sinister ordeal. The fluorescent lights of the Target store seemed harsher than usual as I pushed my cart down the aisles, my mind preoccupied with the mundane task of grocery shopping. Little did I know, my routine trip to Target would soon take a chilling turn. As I reached for a box of cereal, my hand froze midair, a small envelope catching my eye among the brightly colored packaging. Curiosity piqued. I plucked the envelope from the shelf and turned it over in my hands, my heart sinking as I saw the lack of a return address. With trembling fingers, I tore open the envelope and unfolded the single sheet of paper nestled inside. As I read the words scrawled across the page, a chill ran down my spine, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. "Hi there," the letter began, the words printed in a hasty scrawl that sent a shiver down my spine. "I've been watching you. Love to see you here every week. Let's meet sometime soon." My breath caught in my throat as I read the words again, my mind racing with fear and disbelief. Who could have sent such a letter? And more importantly, how had they been watching me without my knowledge? "Is everything all right?" the voice asked, and I looked up to see a concerned shopper standing beside me, her eyes filled with worry. Forced to smile, my hands shaking as I replied, Just a strange letter. Nothing to worry about. But even as I spoke the words, I knew they were a lie. There was something deeply unsettling about the letter, something that filled me with a sense of dread that refused to be ignored. As I hurried through the rest of my shopping, the letter burning a hole in my pocket, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that every aisle held a potential threat. And little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The fluorescent lights of Target cast long shadows as I navigated my way through the aisles, my heart pounding in my chest with every step. Ever since receiving that chilling letter, every corner seemed to harbor a potential threat, every passerby a potential stalker. As I reached for a box of cereal, a shiver ran down my spine, a sudden feeling of being watched sending a ripple of unease through me. Glancing around, I saw nothing out of the ordinary, yet the sense of being observed persisted like a persistent whisper at the edge of my consciousness. Are you okay? A concerned voice broke through my reverie, and I turned to see a fellow shopper. Middle-aged woman with a sympathetic expression on her face. I forced a smile, my hands trembling slightly as I replied, Just a little on edge today, I guess. Thanks for asking. Her eyes held a mixture of understanding and concern as she nodded in response, her cart filled with groceries as she continued on her way. Alone once more, I pressed on, my senses on high alert as I scanned the aisles for any sign of danger. Every rustle of clothing, every footstep behind me sent a jolt of fear coursing through my veins, until I felt as though I was teetering on the edge of a precipice, one wrong move away from tumbling into the abyss. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. A shadowy figure lurking behind a display of paper towels, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. Panic surged through me as I realized that the stalker was here, in the store, mere feet away from me. Without a second thought, I abandoned my cart and made a beeline for the nearest exit, my heart pounding in my chest as I prayed for escape. Hey, wait up! Voice called out from behind me, and I glanced back to see a Target employee hurrying to catch up. Breathless, I skidded to a halt, my chest heaving as I struggled to compose myself. There's someone following me, I blurted out, my words tumbling out in a rush. The employee's eyes widened in alarm as she took in my distressed state, her brow furrowing with concern. Stay here, I'll go get the manager, she said firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. As she hurried off, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the fear that threatened to consume me. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone in this after all. But as I waited for help to arrive, the sense of dread that had plagued me since that first letter only grew stronger, a shadow looming ever closer with each passing moment. The days blurred together in a haze of fear and paranoia, each moment tainted by the knowledge that I was being watched, hunted even, by an unseen predator. With every letter that arrived, with every shadowy figure that lurked just beyond my line of sight, the sense of dread that gripped me tightened its hold, threatening to suffocate me with its suffocating embrace. As I locked the door behind me and stepped into the safety of my home, a wave of relief washed over me, but even within the confines of my own sanctuary, the specter of the stalker loomed large, a shadowy presence that refused to be banished. Alone in the silence of my living room, tried to push aside the fear that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness, but it was no use. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains sent a shiver down my spine, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the safety of my walls. And then, as if sensing my growing terror, the stalker struck again, his presence manifesting in the most unexpected of places. A knock at the door shattered the stillness of the night, sending my heart racing with fear. With trembling hands, I approached the door, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps as I peered through the peephole. half expecting to see the sinister figure of my tormentor lurking on the other side. But to my relief, it was only my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. Her kindly face creased with concern as she took in my pale, drawn features. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked, her voice soft with sympathy. I forced a smile, my voice trembling as I replied, "Just a little on edge lately. Nothing to worry about." But even as the words left my lips, I knew they were a lie. The truth was, I was terrified, consumed by a fear that threatened to swallow me whole. With a gentle pat on the arm, Mrs. Jenkins gave me a reassuring smile before turning to leave, her footsteps echoing softly on the path outside. Alone once more, I sank onto the couch, the weight of my terror pressing down on me like a leaden blanket. How had it come to this? How had a routine trip to Target turned into a nightmare from which I couldn't seem to wake? As I sat there, lost in a sea of fear and uncertainty, I knew one thing for certain. Until the stalker was caught, until I could reclaim the sense of safety that had been stolen from me, I would never truly be free. Night had fallen like a heavy curtain, shrouding the world in darkness as I made my way to my car parked in the dimly lit parking lot outside Target. The air was thick with tension, every shadow seeming to hold the promise of danger as I fumbled for my keys, my heart pounding in my chest with every passing moment. As I approached my car, a sense of unease settled over me, a feeling that something was terribly wrong. It was then that I saw him, a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness of the back seat, his presence a silent threat that sent a chill down my spine. Panic surged through me as I realized that the stalker was here, in my car, mere inches away from me. Without a second thought, I stumbled backwards, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone, desperate to call for help. 911. What's your emergency? A voice crackled through the line, and I swallowed hard, my voice trembling as I recounted the terrifying ordeal unfolding before me. As I spoke, the sound of footsteps echoed through the parking lot, growing louder with each passing moment. With a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, I realized that the stalker was still out there, still watching, still waiting to strike. "Stay calm. Help is on the way," the dispatcher reassured me. But her words offered little comfort in the face of the imminent threat that loomed just beyond my car door. And then, as if by some miracle, the sound of sirens pierced the night. A beacon of hope in the darkness. Relief flooded through me as I heard the approaching police cars, their lights flashing like beacons in the night. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door and stumbled out of the car, my heart pounding in my chest as I waited for the cavalry to arrive. Moments later, the parking lot was filled with flashing lights and the sound of shouting voices as the police descended upon the scene. "Ma, are you all right?" a voice asked, and I turned to see a police officer standing beside me, his expression grave as he took in my shaken appearance. "I think so," stammered, my voice barely more than a whisper as I struggled to make sense of the nightmare that had just unfolded. With a reassuring nod, the officer ushered me away from the car, his presence a comforting anchor in the midst of the chaos. As I watched the police swarm over my car, searching for any sign of the stalker who had invaded my life, I knew that this was far from over. But for now, at least I was safe. And as I stood there, surrounded by flashing lights and the sound of shouting voices, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare would finally come to an end. The sound of sirens pierced the night as I stood frozen in terror, my eyes fixed on the shadowy figure lurking in the back seat of my car. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone, desperation clawing at my chest as I dialed 911, praying for help to arrive before it was too late. 911, what's your emergency? A voice crackled through the line, and I swallowed hard, my voice barely more than a whisper as I recounted the terrifying ordeal unfolding before me. There's someone in my car," I I stammered, my words tumbling out in a rush as I fought to keep the panic at bay. The dispatcher's voice was calm and reassuring as she guided me through the next steps, her words a lifeline in the darkness as I waited for help to arrive. Minutes felt like hours as I stood there, the sound of approaching sirens growing louder with each passing moment. And then, the roar of engines and a blaze of flashing lights. The police descended upon the scene, their presence a welcome sight in the midst of the chaos. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle," a voice called out, and I turned to see a police officer standing beside me, his expression stern but reassuring. With trembling limbs, I obeyed, backing away from the car as the officers swarmed over it, their flashlights sweeping the interior in search of the intruder. Is he still in there?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper as I watched the officer's work. The officer shook his head, his gaze softening with sympathy as he replied, "No, ma'am. We didn't find anyone inside." Relief flooded through me at his words, the tension draining from my body as I realized that the threat had passed. But even as I breathed a sigh of relief, a sense of unease lingered in the air, a reminder of the danger that still lurked just beyond my reach. As the officers wrapped up their investigation and assured me of my safety, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude for their swift response. Without their intervention, I shuddered to think what might have happened. With a final word of caution, the officers bid me farewell and disappeared into the night, leaving me standing alone in the empty parking lot, the echoes of their presence fading into the darkness. As I climbed into my car and drove away, the events of the night replayed themselves in my mind, each moment etched into my memory with startling clarity. And as I made my way home, I knew that this was far from over. The stalker may have eluded capture this time, but I was determined to see justice served, no matter what it took. In the aftermath of the harrowing ordeal with the stalker, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions, each one more tumultuous than the last. With the threat of danger still looming large in my mind, I knew that I couldn't begin to heal until I confronted the trauma head-on. With a sense of determination burning bright within me, I returned to Target, the scene of so many nightmares, in search of closure. As I stepped through the familiar sliding doors, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The memories of past encounters still fresh in my mind, but this time was different. This time, I refused to be ruled by fear. With each step I took, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift from my shoulders, replaced by a newfound sense of strength and resilience. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" a voice asked, and I turned to see my best friend, Sarah, standing beside me, her eyes filled with concern. I nodded, a steely determination shining in my eyes as I replied, "I have to be. I can't let him control my life anymore." With a reassuring smile, Sarah squeezed my hand, her silent support a comforting presence by my side as we ventured further into the store. As we made our way through the aisles, I couldn't help but marvel at the sense of freedom that washed over me. No longer bound by the shackles of fear, I felt as though I could finally breathe again, the weight of the past lifting from my shoulders with each passing moment. And then, as if to reaffirm my newfound sense of empowerment, I saw him, the stalker, lurking in the shadows just beyond the checkout lanes, his gaze fixed on me with a mixture of fear and loathing. For a moment, panic threatened to consume me once more, the memories of past encounters flooding back with a vengeance. But then, something inside me shifted. With a newfound sense of resolve, I squared my shoulders and met his gaze head-on, refusing to cower in the face of his malevolence. "Get out of here," I heard Sarah whisper, her voice filled with quiet determination as she stood beside me, her presence a beacon of strength in the darkness. With a final glance at the stalker, I turned and walked away, my footsteps echoing through the store with a sense of purpose. As I left the nightmare of the past behind me, I knew that I had finally found the closure I so desperately sought. And as I stepped out into the sunlight once more, the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders, replaced by a newfound sense of freedom and possibility. With the support of my friends by my side, I knew that I could face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to embrace the future with open arms. The sun rose high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the world below as I stepped out into the light of a new day, the shadows of the past slowly fading into memory. With each breath I took, I felt a sense of renewal wash over me, a fresh chapter unfolding before my eyes. As I made my way through the familiar streets of my neighborhood, I couldn't help but marvel at the sense of possibility that hung in the air, the promise of a future untainted by fear or uncertainty. "Hey there," a voice called out from behind me, and I turned to see my neighbor, Mr. Thompson, jogging up the sidewalk towards me, a friendly smile on his face. "Morning, Mr. Thompson," I replied, returning his smile with a warmth that had been absent for far too long. He fell into step beside me, his easy demeanor a welcome balm to my soul as we walked together through the quiet streets. "I heard about what happened," he said, his voice soft with sympathy. "I just wanted to say how glad I am that you're okay." Nodded, my throat tightening with emotion as I struggled to find the words to express my gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. It means a lot." As we walked, the weight of the past seemed to grow lighter with each passing moment, replaced by a sense of hope and determination. No longer bound by the shadows of fear, I felt as though I could finally embrace the future with open arms, ready to seize the opportunities that lay before me. And as I stepped into the light of a new day, I knew that I was not alone. With the support of my friends and neighbors by my side, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that I had emerged from the darkness stronger than ever before. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive, the weight of the past lifting from my shoulders as I embraced the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And as I walked into the dawn of a new day, I knew that the best was yet to come.